Our blind taste test project, Goat, the other meat, presented by Zack Crossan, Aaron Rauner, Kirsten Rogers, Madison Rogers, and EJ Stacy.
Goat overview. Goats are thought to have been one of the earliest domesticated animals. Goat is the most highly consumed red meat in the world, but in the United States it does not tend to make it on people's plates that often. However, because of the growing population of ethnic groups in the United States who consume goat more regularly, there is an increasing demand. Meat from adult goats is referred to as chevon, while meat from younger goats is called cabrito. In the United States, farmers' herd size is usually between 28 and 30 goats. Production of goats tends to be the highest in the southeast part of the U.S., mainly in Texas, but the number that gets slaughtered is the highest in New Jersey because of the high populations of Arab, Latino, and South Asian populations. In the past, the United States has not been a big supporter of putting goat on their menus at restaurants, but it appears that is changing. Advocating sustainability and health benefits, many restaurants are considering goat meat the next big thing. In order to gather information on how much goat meat is preferred, we put together a taste test project. On the next few slides there will be more details concerning the project.
The objective of the taste test project was to determine how much people preferred goat meat when compared to beef and pork. This was a blind taste test, which means that each participant did not know the identity of the meats. The participants only knew that the meats were traditional meats eaten by many cultures around the world. Also, the meats were not labeled, so each participant could not favor one over the other. Whether it was goat, pork, or beef, each meat came from the shoulder or the breast of the animal. The meats were seasoned with only salt and pepper and smoked slowly at a low temperature. In this project, we used typical Americans, not from ethnic groups that eat goat meat regularly.
Here are steps for conducting the experiment. Step 1. Gathered our sample for the project at SST Software located in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Step 2. A tray was prepared with 3 crackers, a bottle of water, a survey, and the empty containers. Each container was labeled with a color, blue, green, or red, in a various shape, circle, square, or triangle. Step number 3. A sample of each meat was placed into the containers based on which survey was given to the participants. Step number 4. The tray was then taken by chosen students to a participant to try each meat. The participants were asked to take a drink of water and eat a cracker before tasting the next meat. Step number 5. After each participant finished tasting each meat, they filled out a survey.
As you can tell from these pictures, in the top left, there's a guy filling out the survey, answering all the questions that he is asked. And then in the middle top, you can see all the 3 different types of meats. We tried to make all the meats look identical, so that the participants wouldn't be able to tell which kind of meat was which. In the bottom left is the different types of meats in each container, and in the bottom right you can see Dr. Norwood's volunteers helping with the experiment.
To randomize what we could not control, we used 9 different versions of the survey, and we randomized the contents of the meats. For our data entry, we used Google Drive to input data into a shared spreadsheet. Each survey in the project was inputted by at least 2 people to ensure that no mistakes were made. Lastly, Dr. Norwood looked over all the results to make sure there was no variation in answers.
From our previous slide, we mentioned that we used 9 different versions of the survey, and here are just 2 examples of those different surveys. We have a blue bee and a green bee. Then I just kind of want to go over what else we had for those surveys that are not shown right here. We had a green A, green B, green C, blue A, blue B, blue C, red A, red B, and red C. And then over on our left-handed side for the blue bee, we can see that we asked the participant to please taste the meat in the container labeled circle and then answer the following questions. The questions that they would answer would indicate that the extent to which they liked or disliked the tenderness, flavor, juiciness, and the overall satisfaction of the meat that they tasted in the circle container. And then over on our right-handed side, we asked that the participant please taste the meat in the container labeled triangle and then answer those same following questions that I just discussed. And for the tenderness, flavor, and the juiciness and the overall satisfaction, this was a big part of how my group kind of compiled our results and how to see that if people preferred goat meat or if they preferred beef and pork more. On this slide shows another set of questions that we used in our survey to kind of see what participants thought about their meat and their rankings towards those meats. Up at the top on the left-hand side, you can see that it was a red B survey, and then over to our right was a blue A survey. This kind of just shows a little bit more examples of how we labeled our surveys with a color and then also a letter. Our first question on this page was to please rank each meat according to the overall satisfaction. Assign the 1 to your favorite, 2 to your next favorite, and then a 3 to your least favorite. The second question on this page was we kind of wanted to see what you thought the rankings were of the average American if they were to take that taste test today. The number 1 ranking would be that the meat that you thought would the average American would like the best, the 2 to the average American's next favorite meat, and then also a 3 to the average American's least favorite meat. Our last question on this page was which 2 meats did you think were the most similar, and then which meat was the most distinct to you. They would kind of judge that accordingly of kind of what they thought was the right ones according, because they didn't know which meat was in the triangle, circle, or square, because they just kind of based that off of taste. And then over to our right-handed side was the same set of questions, but as you can see, we randomized what we couldn't control in our surveys, so that's how come we mixed up our, instead of saying triangle, square, circle again, just like we did in the left-handed side, we mixed it up to say square, circle, and triangle.
Description of the sample. On October 29th from 11 to 12 p.m., students in Dr. Norwood's AGEC 4213 class went to SST software located in Stillwater, Oklahoma, to have their employees participate in a blind taste test. At the beginning of the semester, each student enrolled in Norwood's class was required to complete an IRB training to be able to handle the meats in the experiment. We used SST software because they had several different employees within their company, and there was not a variety of different ethnic groups that could have potentially eaten goat meat regularly. Of the 31 people at SST who completed our survey, the most common ethnicity was white. The most frequently eaten meat for the SST software employees is chicken and beef in their household. In the United States, studies show that beef is the most consumed in the United States and chicken is close behind.
On our first chart of results, we showed the ranking of juiciness of each meat sample. Our sample size was 31. All 3 meats were ranked highest in the like moderately column, with goat receiving 8 responses, pork receiving 12 responses, and beef receiving 10 responses.
On our second chart, we showed the ranking of flavor of each meat sample. All 3 meats were ranked highest in the like moderately column, with goat receiving 10 responses and pork and beef both receiving 12 responses.
For our third set of results, we chose to look at the rankingness of tenderness of each meat sample. Our sample size, once again, was 31. And according to our highest number of responses that we received, goat and beef were liked moderately. Goat's number was 12 responses, while beef was at 14 responses. And then as we look at pork over here, we see that pork was liked very much and came in at a number of responses at 16. For our last set of results, we chose to look at the overall satisfaction of each meat sample. According to our highest number of respondents, we can see that goat and beef were liked moderately. Goat came in at a number of 10 responses, while beef came in at 14 responses. Then we can see that pork was liked slightly and came in at a number of 9 responses.
We learned in this project that people that work at SST software do not prefer goat meat over pork and beef. Goat was ranked first only 13% of the time and ranked third 48% of the time. Beef was ranked higher 52% of the time as compared to pork and goat. And that concludes our project.